In the sweltering summer of 1963, Thomas Lee Jenkins, a 27-year-old black postal worker in Jackson, Mississippi, began writing a letter. It was addressed to President John F. Kennedy. Mr. President, I have done what was asked. I pay taxes. I fight in your wars. I teach my son to respect the flag that still won't protect him. Thomas had never written a politician before. But when his best friend Calvin Briggs was beaten and arrested for trying to register to vote, something inside Thomas snapped. He folded the letter and placed it under his mattress. He would send it after the rally. Thomas was cautious. Jackson wasn't safe for a man like him, not if he spoke up. So he kept his head down, even when white coworkers whispered the N-word just loud enough. But one man seemed different. Deputy Wallace Walt Crowley was a white man who had once served with Thomas in Korea. They'd shared a foxhole. When Walt saw Thomas at the grocery store in uniform, he called him brother. So when Walt pulled Thomas aside and said, "Be careful, Tom. They're watching the NAACP meetings," Thomas believed him. What he didn't know was that Walt was feeding names to the local White Citizens Council. Thomas's name was on that list. On June 10, 1963, Thomas attended a peaceful rally at Nton Calvary Baptist Church. They sang. They prayed. And they marched. Just 5 blocks before reaching City Hall, they were met by police. Tear gas exploded. Dogs were unleashed. Thomas tried to shield a teenage girl from the chaos. A baton struck the back of his skull. He collapsed. Woke up in jail. His charges? Inciting a riot and assaulting an officer. Thomas was denied a phone call. For 3 days, his wife Lila didn't know if he was alive. The NAACP scrambled to locate him, and when they did, they found him bruised, concussed, and terrified. Bail was denied. Evidence disappeared. And the man who signed the arrest report? Deputy Walt Crowley. When Lila confronted Walt outside the courthouse, he didn't look her in the eye. Thomas was sentenced to 6 months hard labor at Parchman Prison Farm, notorious for its brutality. He was gone before he could mail the letter. Inside Parchman, Thomas met other black men, teachers, veterans, preachers, jailed for daring to demand basic rights. They shared stories. They memorized each other's names. They promised not to forget. Meanwhile, Lila kept fighting. She took the letter and copies of his court files to every church and journalist she could find. One finally listened. Ellen Wade, a young white reporter from the Chicago Defender, visited Lila. She published the story under the headline, "Postal Worker Imprisoned for Peaceful March, the Letter He Never Sent." It gained traction. So much that Senator Jacob Javits brought it to the Senate floor. Under pressure, Thomas was quietly released after 4 months. He returned home thin, solemn, and changed. Thomas never finished his letter to the president. But his son, Marcus, kept a copy and read it aloud at a school event 40 years later. That reading sparked a local petition to rename the street where Thomas was arrested. Today, Jenkins Freedom Way runs through the heart of Jackson. Thomas died in 2002, peacefully, surrounded by his grandchildren. But the letter remains. A framed copy hangs in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I want my boy to believe in this country, Mr. President. But I need to see it believe in him first.